Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the show. This is Vegan World 2026, Moonshot of Our Generation podcast. And today is episode 19. And today we are going to be talking about why food is key to the civilizational transformation that we are all seeking. Because the current civilization is based on the foundational axioms that number one, the pursuit of happiness is best accomplished through stoking and satisfying a never-ending series of latent desires. And two, life is a competitive game in which the privileged can possess, enslave, and exploit animals, nature, and the underprivileged for the pursuit of happiness. Now, these two axioms are fundamentally false. Therefore, we have a civilization that is not going to be sustainable, that is not sustainable. So we need to switch. We need to transform our civilization. Now, in the meantime, with this foundation, we have built all the tools and technologies we need to understand our role in the ecosystem. And it's going to serve us well in our future role as the caretaking thermostat species of the planet. Now that the nations of the world have acknowledged through the Paris Climate Accord that humanity is changing the climate of the planet and shouldn't be increasing the temperature beyond a certain limit. So they've agreed to that, which means humanity has ipso facto assumed the responsibility to consciously regulate the Earth's climate for the benefit of all life for generations to come. So this requires a civilizational transformation. A transformation to a civilization based on the true foundational axioms, which is that the pursuit of happiness is best accomplished by seeking it within ourselves. And two, life is a collaborative game in which we each give all that we can, receive all that we need, and become all that we are. This is the vitality code that Dr. Shelley Ostroff keeps talking about. So this requires us to fundamentally transform our food system. The food is key. Culture, food is key to civilization. And so today we are joined by several guests who are working on making this transformation happen. And I'm going to begin with Hemal Randerwala. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sehgal.
Yeah.
Really blessed to be here. Really happy to be here with you.
Tell us what you're doing in the UK on food and through your organization, GoDharmic.
So we have an organization which is, I like to call a borderless and boundaryless organization, in that we're happy to collaborate and work with any other organization. And food, like you said, is really central. So the organization is called GoDharmic. And Dharma, as an ancient Sanskrit term, means to support or to sustain or to care for and to be responsible for. There is no exact English translation, but these are the kind of ideas that surround it. And we kind of understand the term GoDharmic is a call to action to care for ourselves, other living beings, including the animals and the insects and all living beings, and the earth and the environment, and holistically care and as our moral responsibility. So just as the dharma of fire may be to produce heat or light, we would understand that the dharma of humanity is to be humane and to be kind. And it's very universal in that way, although it does stem from the Indian traditions. It's universal language and very, very powerful. And food is really central. So, personally, I was deeply inspired by the Indian saint Neem Karoli Baba. And he inspired many people like Ram Dass, and in America, many of you will have been familiar with. And when many people in the West went to him to ask, how can we obtain enlightenment? How do we raise our kundalini? How do we get these yogic strengths and powers and so on? He would reply, feed the poor, love one another, be kind to one another. And people found that difficult to understand because they wanted some rule book for enlightenment or some technique or some special code. And actually it was just about loving everyone, love all, feed all. And that's what we do through Godarmic. We try to kind of create a platform where universally people can come together as a community and simply share love with one another. And through food, we try to help people who are struggling, who are homeless, who are like there's so much new poverty, families and so on going through difficult periods here and across the world. We have 3,000 plus volunteers who are mobilized doing that work now, but it's really just people coming together as ordinary people to share their hearts with people who are struggling and give their time or their talents towards helping in that way.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Jamen to the discussion. Jamen is working on food healers of Whidbey Island, and he has this 5 reasons why food is key. He sent me that, and I would like him to just talk about that first, and then we can talk about how are we going to do this.
Beautiful. Good morning, Silas, Hemal. So nice to be with you both. Love what you're saying, Hemal and Silas. So the principles of food healers, it's a radical new approach where we basically set about feeding everyone, providing food to everyone, not just the poor. This is actually crucial. And the foods that we serve, rather than being, kind of scraps, waste, whatever for the poor, it's gourmet plant-based foods. Now, by the very nature of the fact that it's plant-based, the world is very generous with plants, a huge abundance. We have more than enough to feed everyone many times over. And so it's a whole new paradigm. And among the benefits are, number one, eradicate hunger and malnutrition, which has been plaguing us for millennia. I mean, it's time. And the benefits for that are just obvious and known to all.
Right.
Stop the spread of pandemics, right? By, number one, distributing the food to where people live, eliminating the need for people to be running around, whether they're trying to get money or whether they're trying to beg, borrow, steal, whatever. Just, it's what China did initially with the pandemic. Let people stay at home. We'll bring you the food. Also, the immune boosting properties of a healthy plant-based diet. So stop the spread of pandemics. Heal Mother Earth. Stop the decimation of the rainforest, the Amazon ecosystems generally for the production of, for animal agriculture. Stop climate change. And liberate, another benefit is to liberate humanity from this game of individual hoarding for individual survival. Because right now, the penalty for losing at the all-day monopoly game of hoarding is death by starvation. Right? No wonder we're so frantically trying to hoard, right? And finally, a radical transformation in our entire set of living arrangements, starting with a basis upon which all basic human needs become basic human rights. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's my humble perspective, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamen. I'm going to add Sarah to the stream because Sarah is trying to do something like this in California, where the impact of COVID-19 and the disruption to the economy is being widely seen. Even in the richest neighborhoods like Beverly Hills, you're seeing poverty. So go ahead, Sarah. Tell us what you're trying to do there.
Well, thanks to Jamen and you, Dr. Rao, and now Hemal, we're trying to get the model for doing this here in Los Angeles, because when I'm driving around doing my pet sitting, I'm driving through these neighborhoods that you're talking about, and there's $1 million houses everywhere. Sometimes there's $10 million houses, but right there in front of me and outside are the tents and the RVs. Because of the pandemic, people have been displaced, and 1 out of 4 persons is going hungry. And we're talking like middle class. So can you imagine if the middle class 1 in 4 are going hungry, and most people aren't middle class? Most people
Right.
are in poverty. Let's just be real.
Right.
So we're just trying to do this and make the stew. We have a recipe. It's great. It's just a template, but it's whole food, plant-based. We have plenty of volunteers here in Los Angeles that are plant-based, that are willing to make the stew in their certified, plant-based kitchens.
Mhm.
And it's healthy, and we can distribute it. And it's just going to be great because there's no discrimination. I'm a Make-A-Wish volunteer. So to give you an example, we don't discriminate. If a kid wants a wish, it doesn't matter where they live or what their circumstances are. They have a life-threatening illness. They want to have a wish fulfilled.
Right.
This is the same thing. This is a basic human right to just have food. So this is what we want to do. We're not going to try to go and do what all the other food banks do and, give them boxes of Doritos and throw frozen turkeys through their window and stuff. We want to give them whole food, plant-based foods because it's meals that heal. Meals that heal. So that's what it is. And thank you, Jamen, if you want to talk further on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jamen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Los Angeles is really a perfect place to launch this and then perfect it, right? And with support, generous support from Hemal, with learnings that you're doing. I love the way you characterize your organization as boundarylessness. And speaking of which, I had a great conversation with Ingrid yesterday in Los Angeles, who's been providing plant-based foods to houseless camps in Los Angeles. We had a wonderful conversation, all in Spanish. You put two Hispanics together, we speak Spanish. And I can tell you, she is so inspiring. And what she said was so inspiring, that the farmers markets and these other sources of food, there is abundant food to be donated. What they don't sell at these farmer markets, they just want to give it away. They don't want to take it back to the farm and turn it into compost. They want to donate it. What they're lacking is volunteers. And that's precisely what Sarah provides, is a whole bunch of volunteers. Sarah is a natural leader and inspires so many, and is so dedicated and selfless and committed to animals and animal rights and human rights. Sarah, God bless you, and God bless you all. So I'm just so excited that we perfect this and expand it throughout Los Angeles, which, being the media capital of the world, we then get the message of the model throughout the entire world. We need to sweep the entire world with this revolution where everyone eats plant-based foods, period, end of story, ASAP.
That's such a beautiful vision, Jamen. I mean, this is humanity coming together and saying, we are done with that old model, and we are now going to have to switch over. And this is, I spoke to this Mataji at the Iscon Temple in Phoenix, and I asked her, would you be willing to cook universal meals based on PCRM's guidelines, so that we can feed people who have diabetes and who are sick? And she said, absolutely. Our kitchen is open. So it's now making the connection, and of course, now what you're saying with farmers markets, people are just saying, take the leftovers. I mean, the temple would happily take the leftovers and cook with it, right? So it's now connecting with the farmers market, connecting with the people who are growing food here. We actually have someone who comes and picks up our food waste every week and goes and composts it and brings back a bag full of produce every week on the same farm that we composted. So it's closing the loop, right? And helping humanity heal locally with local food. So beautiful work you're doing. I'm going to bring Summer and Annie to the stream. We're going to get a little bit crowded, but that's okay. So Summer, tell us how you're doing this in Los Angeles, or what you're up to.
Well, I am a total newcomer to this group. I just met Jamen and Sarah days ago. In LA, about 2 months ago, I participated in a gigaton challenge, which was how to get a literal ton of carbon out of the air in Los Angeles in a 2-week period. Well, it turned out that the most effective way to do that was to look at food waste, because the food waste is so huge going into the dumps and then creating the methane gas.
Right.
And so so this feels like a total natural lead in to this now, because there's a lot of people in Los Angeles who are donating their food. A lot of the big health food stores donate, like you were saying, the farmers markets donate their food. And so it does seem like there's a ready supply of it. And what's amazing to me personally is that I have been looking at what to do, how to contribute, and where is if somebody could plug it all into a big computer and say what needs to be addressed next in order to support the whole planetary transformation, what would that be? And to have it be food is just totally how could I have not thought of that? And yet, but to actually name it and to see why that's so, just feels very empowering and very easy to then share that message.
Yeah, thank you, Samar. And I mean, you brought up the point about the methane emissions from landfills. Which is, methane is the best way for us to control the climate in the short term. Okay, because it is the most powerful greenhouse gas on a 10-year basis or a 1-year basis. I mean, instantaneously, it is causing more heating than CO2. Okay. On an annual basis, we are adding more heating from methane than from CO2. So we know that by bringing down the methane quickly, we can actually cool the climate quickly. And one way to do that, of course, is to get rid of this entire animal agriculture industry, which is pouring methane into the atmosphere. And the other is to address these leaks, like landfill methane, gas leaks from natural gas pipelines. Those are all adding another 20-30% of the methane that we are putting into the atmosphere. And so you're right. I mean, instead of our food waste becoming methane and ruining the planet, we can turn that into compost and food for ourselves locally. So
the other thing that really stood out to me about that cycle is understanding the soil. And that when the soil is all tilled up, it loses its ability to hold water and to attract carbon back down into the soil through the plants, through that living exchange. And so when people understand how the soil works, and then can produce food in a way that doesn't damage the soil, which can then support that drawdown effect of bringing the carbon out of the atmosphere back down into the plants and down into the soil. That it just all works so beautifully when you let it do its right process.
You need to apply to the XPRIZE, because they have just announced $100 million for the best idea to sequester a gigaton of carbon every year from the atmosphere. What better idea than changing the food system, right? I don't know if they'll take it, but yeah, that's a great proposal right there for us to post there. Annie, what do you think? Hi, how are you?
Yes, I'm very excited about this project, and I would love to find out more details from the experienced people. And yes, I totally agree about the leaving the good planet behind us and not ruining, for our future generations. So, I would love to help. Yeah. And
that's the thing, right? We all have intention now, right? We have the intention to do it. Go for it, Annie.
yes, and I think it will be great to teach people about gardening too. I mean, I am not an expert in that, but there's a lot of people know what to do. That would be, a lot of people have land and they can grow their own food. They can be self-sustainable. So it can start with that. But with the food that's we're going to provide, are we going to tell them what it is and what it's for? Should we have signs? Should we have, communication about this?
Right.
Because, yeah, I think we should have communication about this.
Absolutely. That's where Jane comes in, right? Jane Willis Mitchell and her Jane Unchained News. So speaking of someone who has a lot of experience doing this, I'm going to return back to Hemal and ask him to talk about how many meals have you served, GoDharmic has served in the UK, and is the government supporting you, and what is going on there?
So we're a largely volunteer-based organization. In fact, we only have one staff member, but many hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers across the country, and a large base in India as well. And one of the things we do work with the government to distribute food for vulnerable people where they were struggling, especially during this COVID period. The Department of Food and Agriculture supported our work to help people receive food aid. And one of the things I would share is that we were quite shocked at the cost of food that the government was willing to provide to charities like us to support people per meal. Whereas a nutritious vegan meal can be relatively inexpensive. And if we just think about during this COVID pandemic, at the beginning, at least of the first instance, many people rushed to the supermarkets and collected pasta and tinned foods, and the meat produce was empty. But lentils were in abundance still. Rice was in abundance. So much vegan produce was there that's nutritious and able to feed families at a very low cost. People were simply unaware of. So this year we've delivered over 3 million meals across the UK, across India, across Africa, all through volunteers distributing. It's been a tremendous volunteer effort of people volunteering full time to provide food to vulnerable people, and just on the streets, like, yes, it's targeting people who are struggling for food poverty, but anybody that wants a meal can walk up and take a meal. It says "Love all, feed all" on the banners in Trafalgar Square as the food's there and the food is received. And we just really started now with families to provide recipe kits and help them to understand. Many of these families are cooking for the first time with their family members when they receive these kits. They might just be living off almost fast food or ready meals at supermarkets.
Right.
And I think it's about, bringing them together with their children, bringing the family together to cook nutritious, wholesome, vegan, plant-based foods. And they really do enjoy it. The feedback, we've never received negative feedback, and every meal is vegan that we provide. I think this is a great way of helping to reduce environmental impact, as well as reaching out for non-violence to ourselves as well as to animals. I just mentioned one thing briefly, is that we have the Glasgow conference coming up in November this year. Hopefully, if it still goes ahead. Because of the pandemic, it may be postponed. But if we just think about how much does food play a role in that conference, and where is the attention on animal agriculture? It's near non-existent, I would say, relative to its importance to people like us, and all of us sitting here. And that's why I really praise each one of you for being a voice for raising that, all of the work that you will do, because I think many environmental activists are still short of understanding the impact of food, and therefore it's so incumbent upon us to make people pledge to understand what is going on, and at least make an educated choice, at least be educated about that.
I have a question for Hemal.
Go ahead, Rose. Go ahead, Sarah.
Only easy ones, please.
They're basic beginners questions. So I did like what you said, love all, feed all. I really like that tagline. Possibly we could use that if you don't mind.
We've just copied. No, of course. The level.
So my point
Yeah.
is that let's start. I wanted to answer Annie's question because I think it really needs to be answered, because we need to start from the beginning, because what we're trying to get to what you're doing, that's great, but we need to start at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So should we have a table that has a sign that says love all, feed all, and I have the ingredients? I don't really think we need to have the ingredients of the stew and hand it out to people, but I wanted to talk to you from the beginning. We're going to have them have their own container, and if they don't, we'll just have them pay a deposit and we'll give them a container. So I wanted to do the basic nuts and bolts of how do you start it, how do you start your lemonade stand, and then you turn it into country time.
And it really is a lemonade stand. Like, if I'm honest, we have food distribution happening every day of the week in a various place, whether it's in India, across the UK, and it really just started with 20 bananas. We just go set up a table, then start meal preparations, then start. And today it's snowing here in the UK. Nothing like what it would be in somewhere like New York or other places, but it really is about just having the table. We do have all of our packaging must be biodegradable, because if you have homeless people there, it's likely that is going to land on the floor. So that's one thing that I would advise. And the other part is that what we've tried to do is often, like, whether it's a place of worship or, like a temple or so on, that they will operate by the clock at a certain time. So every food distribution that we have is locked in at a time, and therefore we respect the fact that others will know that that's there, and then if they're relying or coming for that, could be traveling an hour for your meal. We should be there, and just like the temple bell will ring at a certain time every day, we will be there. If it's once a week initially, then every week at that time the volunteers would come, and we can support that. We can send you the banners or the table thing, whatever you need. We can support you with all of that. And I would advise to have the ingredient thing at least on a banner on the table, such that if people have allergies or want to check in, at least from a perspective of choice, they can make a decision whether they want to consume that food as well. I think that's an important thing. Just a funny thing is that sometimes we have volunteers who come, and if we were giving crisps and somebody wanted to choose the flavoring of the chips, I guess you call it chips, but we call it crisps. And the volunteer got a bit upset and said, "Look, why are they asking what flavor they have, or if they wanted to pick a specific packet?" And I tried to explain that, look, they're human beings; they can choose. We have flavors, we have choices, we have options, and we try to give food in such a way as if we're not giving the food, we're receiving the food. By feeding them, I believe it's a very selfish thing to feed people. We gain so much as the volunteers who go there and be part of that process. So it's not like we're handing down anything. This is a completely two-way process that we come together as people. We have a cup of tea with someone, and Caroline Horhy, who's on the Queen's Council here in the UK, one of the leading experts on modern slavery, recently spoke with us and shared, has been supporting our work, and she said a very important and simple question. Ask them, how are you? Are you okay? It's a very basic thing, but sometimes, you hand the food, the people go, they move on. But are you okay? Do you want to tell me anything? Is there anything that I can help with? And that person could be going through modern slavery. They could be going through a very difficult domestic violence situation. That person could be going through a difficult circumstance. And your gift of love and your gift of time and is so much more profound than the meal that we give. But we share that food since time immemorial. And I feel that having it public, having it visible, having a big sign that shouts out loudly and love all, feed all is an important message to convey. Absolutely will help in any way, shape, or form to mobilize volunteers, to keep it regular, and to ensure that people understand what is going into the meals and distributions that we do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, that was a very insightful comment that you made about being a two-way street. This is really us also, getting a benefit from our donations or whatever we do. Because, I mean, I remember, cooking for a family of 5. It was just a minor thing that I was doing, but I was going and dropping it off every day. And I got so much out of it. And I don't know if the people who I was serving got as much as I did out of it. But you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think the volunteers almost struggle not to go back. Once they start, they very rarely give up on the volunteering because it becomes a part of their life. And I think we all work so hard, don't we? Like for ourselves, people earn money. We spoke about it, Shailesh, just over the weekend. But people work so much for their own consumption or their own income. Whereas if you're giving just even a small proportion the other way, giving it out, how much nourishment we get from that and how strengthening that can be. So I think I completely agree that, volunteers don't come only to give something, or shouldn't come only for that reason. It's us together and creating that oneness.
Yeah, creating that oneness. So Sarah, there is also an app that Hemal and his team has written that may be useful for us. And I would encourage you to take a look at that. And actually, Hemal, tell us a little bit about the app and what does it do? How does it help with the food distribution?
So we only launched it just last year. But what we try to do is, because there are so many pulls against volunteer work or activism in general, or making a difference, compassion in action, as Ramdas used to use the kind of tagline. We just want to do everything in a way that can actually make a higher impact or a greater impact in the now. And just like Shailesh, you do with your documentaries and your profound work to kind of send messaging in that way, we felt that having an app which is a digital home for those volunteers and those hearts to come together and communicate and strengthen and share documents and share ideas and create what they call in India satsang around compassion in action and strengthen through that communion of volunteers. That was really important. So we developed an app. It's a really nice platform to be able to communicate locally as well as globally with various groups and see the work of various different volunteers within Godarmic, and also it's open to other organizations to use as well. So anybody can request a group to be made, and if they are short of volunteers for their work, they can request it out and speak to others as well, and also share what they're doing. Maybe some difficulties, they need help, they need volunteers, they need any kind of assistance with a campaign. And then I really believe that, as you mentioned earlier, Sehgal, that food is the beginning. We start with food, and when people come for food, they start thinking so much other stuff, like how do we educate kids in suffering areas? How do we do this? How do we create other things? And it's just something about people coming together with food at the core that transforms us. So we didn't think that food was the highest social impact thing we could do when we started. Now we think it's the most important thing we can do, because it feeds everything else.
Right. And I think it's important that it should be healthy food, healthy food. So this is why we are asking the temples to cook according to the PCRM guidelines, because those guidelines are written by doctors who understand health and who have no axe to grind. They're not funded by the pharmaceutical companies or anything like that. And, they have made sure that it doesn't have any of the common allergens. This is what universal meals are all about. And so if we put the ingredients and say it's a PCRM compliant, universal meals compliant, that gives a
really
sense
like
of,
that.
yeah, thank
That's a
you.
great answer because you just answered a really great. That was one of our, what Annie was asking is like, I wanted to give the recipe, but I wasn't sure how to give it. So,
Right.
I have it typed out here. So we just put it on the front of the banner and it
Mhm.
just, like you said, PCRM compliant. We probably want to put what PCRM is, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I kind of like not to use too many acronyms around pre-vegans.
Mhm.
I want them to hear what it says. Physicians that authorize this or whatever you want to say or compliant with. So I really like that answer.
Yeah, it's actually universal meals compliant. So they have a
Okay.
whole tagline around universal meals. So we can, I can get the information from the website and send it to you, so you have that.
Also,
Because
name of the app. Should we look at it? Should we download
oh,
it?
we will definitely have another meeting with Hemal to go through the app and see what we can take. I mean,
Sure. It's called
yeah.
GoDharmic. It's available on the App Store as well as on the Play Store.
Go what?
Godarmic.
DHARMIC.
Dharmic.
Yeah. So like Dharma is to sustain or to support, and Dharmic is the active element. So with a GoDharmic. So one of our trustees said recently that we should have called it GoDharmic, please, because we all believe in kindness. But it's there. It's called GoDharmic, and it's there to try and build out. Look, it's a kind of, as I said, borderless community that we want to build, that beloved community. Who are the people who are going to be the change makers, and where can we work together to really make a difference? How do we come together? And Sailesh, on what you mentioned, I think it's absolutely crucial that the meals that we do produce, even here in the UK. I would love for you to have some input with our food producers, and actually, although it's vegan meals at the moment, what common allergens can we reduce out of there that can kind of fall into that guideline? Because that's not something that we currently do. But I'm you're preaching to the converted. I think we absolutely should do that and add that to all the restaurants and providers.
Go ahead, Jamen.
Thank you. So I have some comments about kind of the marketing and promotion of this, and also then a question for Hemal around packaging and serving. So my thought around messaging is, first of all, here's what I propose that we really stay away from, is anything at all that would even imply in the slightest way, this is for poor people, this is for hungry people, things like that, because then there'll be a huge stigma and all that. So what I'm thinking is a messaging around immune boosting plant-based foods for all, right? I don't care, you're rich, you're poor, and then a message, try it and join the conversation. We're not just here to give you food. We want to talk with you. What do you think, right? And really here, what we're doing is we're connecting two things: feeding everyone and plant-based foods. And I think before we just had this, a lot of the food drives and food efforts and whatnot have just been focused on the first one, kind of feed everyone, and that defaults to the poor, those who don't have, creating the stigma and all that stuff. It's kind of a race to the bottom in a way. So I think now we have this magic combination. The question I have for you, Hemal, regarding packaging. So Sarah and I and Summer and Silas and I, we've been talking about this concept of what if we deliver this stew in such a way that the idea is you bring your own container, we'll fill you up. If you have a big family, we'll fill up a big pot for you, etc., thus eliminating waste of any kind. I'm just wondering, have you tried anything like that of bring your own container? And then we've thought of having, like, for example, a stack of stainless steel bowls that we can sell at cost or something for people who don't have a container. Just curious to know your experience in this realm.
We haven't. It's something that we've considered to do, because we are mostly on the streets when we distribute. We're out in the open. It's not really accessible for people. And look, many would be homeless or people who come for the food. We never say that anybody is restricted. It says love all, feed all, and anybody comes. And many people can come in a city suit and take food. They love it. They have tea, or the police come and take a food, or anybody else can come and support. But because of COVID as well, we try to minimize the amount of touch as well. Like, if somebody's giving you a container, then you need to handle that. And then, so I think if you are planning on launching anything in the short term, it probably wouldn't be the most ideal way, because you're increasing the number of touches. At the moment, you can place something on a table and they can collect it and then go out. But if they're giving you something that's come from their home, it significantly increases the number of the volunteer risk, which is something to consider. We do take it very seriously and try to, put whatever measures we can in place to protect the volunteers as well, as there many could be susceptible, if not their family members susceptible. But I do really love the idea, and I would love to kind of, at least with our restaurant providers and our food distribution points, to have a system where people can come and almost like in India, you have the tiffins, right? Like in Mumbai, the largest food distribution system is tiffins, where they take your tiffin, they fill it up with your food, they bring it back to you, you have your lunch, and then somebody collects that tiffin again and gives it back to you. So it is something that we've explored, but not something that we've live executed. Again, it would significantly reduce our cost. We pay for containers, we pay for packaging, and that would not only reduce cost, but also production waste and energy that goes into producing all of those items. So definitely 100% there should be this system. The other part is that we don't always give cooked food. I think it's also, if you can give food that potentially is going into the waste system, and you just give it to them, give them some recipe card which can be cooked at home, and let them produce the meal with their children at home in a nice way, then that is very long-term sustaining. Because if you're a family of 4, say, for example, if I was able to obtain for, say, $10 enough food that can last me a week to cook lentils and rice and beans and nutritious items, that is better than me going out on the street and collecting the food back and forward 3 times, 4 times a week. So I think there's multiple areas, and huge food waste, right? In our society already there is huge food waste. So with a hot meal together, here's also a bag of food that came via these plant-based streams that perhaps wasn't going to be sold today, and you can take it for free. It's like a food market. You can take it. It's yours.
Yeah. Now in India, there is I've been to an organization called Annamrita, and so they do the cooked food distribution, and basically it's a stew. It's really, they call it khichdi, but it's really a stew. It's just watery khichdi, right? It's stew. It's just lentils, rice, and vegetables and spices. And the children bring their own containers. And so they have this ladle that the big ladle that they put into the child's container. And of course, they have an extra ladle just in case the ladle touches the container. They can clean that separately. And so they use an extra ladle for, so for fail-safe, right? So basically, you have to have some fail-safe mechanisms in place. But otherwise, I think with proper precautions, you should be able to bring your own container to minimize the waste, and of course, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Especially if it's like a khichdi or a stew type dish where you just have a big pot. They come with the container and you fill it up for them, and they can take it away for sure. And it's
you're
so
saying
cheap.
that we can do what we're trying to do and give the vegetables, but I agree with what you said. We should definitely, if we're getting all these things donated or we have extra boxes of vegetables, they can also get that too if they want. I mean, I think I love that. I'm just asking you though, I want to get back to the detailed question that Jamen asked. I don't really like the idea of having a big vat and then people coming up and scooping it themselves. I feel like we should scoop it for them.
Right.
So we do this.
If they bring their own container, are you saying that's okay, Hemal? Are you saying that because what do you do now? Do you give, we don't want to give containers, that's such a waste. So how do you do it now? That's what I think we're asking.
So currently we do give containers because a large percentage of the people are homeless or, on the streets or, and when you park up, like once people know that you're there, naturally you are going to get a large percentage of people who are rough sleeping or if you're in the inner city areas where you're distributed. We're in Covent Garden in central London in one of our local, and also in Glasgow in Scotland. And a large number of those people at those locations are rough sleepers or street, people who are passing by or sitting on a corner somewhere who will come for that food. If you're, for example, in a place where you're targeting families who may be in new poverty or, children near a school who can benefit from it, or in those kind of locations, maybe, slightly suburban locations, those places, I'm sure they can prepare and come with containers and actually take those. But probably to keep some biodegradable containers would be, advisable. I would suggest to have some at least, so that because some may come and if you give a stew, they can't take it in their hands. So we don't want anybody to go without, right? Like that's the main thing.
Right.
Yeah, I really think this I've seen like a stainless steel where it almost looks like a little mini gravy type thing where you can actually drink the stew in a stainless steel, and the stew doesn't have to be hot; it can be room temperature. The whole idea is just to give them a nourishing meal, because giving them a sub sandwich is just that's not healthy. The whole idea behind this is, love all, feed all, but feed them so that they can heal as well. So we don't want to go backwards. We're just trying to go forward. So I appreciate you. And I think this is great, Jamen. We're getting great answers.
So one of my friends...
Get the containers.
One of my friends, his name is Paraprabhu, and he's part of an organization called Food for All in the UK. And he has the biggest, he has a claim to the biggest pots in the Western world. And he got them specially made in Rajasthan, and they're ginormous big pots that can produce 4,000 meals a day from these pots. And he produces exactly this, khichdi type stews. And they're one pot meals. They have a grain, they have lentils, they have vegetables. And mix, and it will be a different combination. It does take some time for some people to get used to these meals. They're different to what an average Western meal would be. But I think that they are the way forward, and they're the future of the core basic diet for people who want to eat simply and kind of lighten the karmic load on the environment and themselves.
And also, Hemal, how beautiful to get children trained in on a healthy taste and a healthy desire for a bowl of stew rather than a bunch of chips.
Right.
It's really a great way. And I was thinking about the wealthy people too, of how to present it and bring them into the conversation, because I know a lot of wealthy people do not know how to cook a healthy vegetarian stew, and they've been more meat oriented. And then I think there's also, so I think that's a way to bring some of those people in of, hey, learn how to do this for yourself, for your kids, for the planet. And then it seems like there might be a way to appeal to the consciousness of people who are meat eaters. That's their main approach. They want it. They don't want it taken away from them. How to engage them in a conversation that might help them understand why it's important and create some motivation for people who otherwise would just be happy continuing to eat meat.
Yeah, we could have a page that they can link to, that they could see. We could have something that you can scan a QR code on the banner, and that'll take you to a web page that shows you why we do what we do, which is basically, the 6 or 5 things that Jamen was talking about, for the environment, for pandemics, for our human health, so for the animals. I mean, it's there, right? It's people can see it once you show them. So
I would just add to that and say that, when we initially, when we were doing the food distributions, we just did it on a plain table with no real banners or kind of signage, or there was nothing. And for years, nobody really donated, nobody supported as we were passing, or it was kind of just a quiet group of people in a small queue. As soon as we put a big banner up which says "Love All, Feed All," we raised more money in the first day than we did in 5 years of food distribution.
Wow.
So I just think it's important to put that loudly and to be visible. It's important to be visible and to
right.
Because it helps to wake people up and to also to kind of like we're having this public conversation here, but it's very much we're discussing intricacies of a food distribution plan, and maybe others can benefit from that. We could have easily done it on a private conversation, but I think it's important to get out there and create that awareness of what is so easy to do and so possible.
The other thing I noticed is that, we were distributing packets of food, lentils, dry lentils, dry beans, and dry rice, and so on, and potatoes, vegetables that last. But people don't have all the other ingredients that need to go into a healthy, tasty stew, like the spices we use and the herbs we use. These are the things that's where the trick is, right? To make it palatable, and not only palatable, delectable, right? So, and that's why I think preparing it by people who know how to do it and getting it to people is important. So yeah, go ahead.
Have you heard of the story of the stone soup?
I know Jamen tells me that story all the time.
Does he? That's
Yes.
great, Jamen. Okay, I won't tell it again. But it did make me think of it. The other thing I wanted to share is that it's been 50 years now, but I was in India at the Golden Temple and had the opportunity to be served on a big metal plate this big, with people coming by and putting on a glop of all the most amazing things that, to me, I didn't know what lentils were at that time. I didn't know what I was eating. I just knew it was magical to be in that space, to be served, to and to be eating this nutritious, amazing new stuff. And so I imagine people will have that experience too.
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to recreate in City Eras. Just that same love and feeling of togetherness. And one of my very long-standing Sikh friends, when we discussed langar or prasad and food distribution, he discussed langar, which means the distribution of the food in the Golden Temple or any other Gurudwara, as langar is the body of Guru Nanak. So it's almost like that food is divine. It is part of us all, and they look at it in that way. And whether it's temples or churches or mosques or any religious organization that has a kitchen and has an ability to share that with people, I think it's a beautiful thing.
With that, we are almost running out of time. So any last comments that you would like to make before we close? So thank you so much, though, for being here. Anyone? Jamen, go for it.
Yeah, one last comment is I'm so inspired talking yesterday with Ingrid in Los Angeles, who said that she does it all volunteer, all donations, right? And that she just needs more volunteers because there's plenty of food. So what I'm thinking is, and especially with Hemal just mentioned, with good signage and a good message, we'll get so many donations, to offset the cost of fuel, signage, whatever we need. We'll probably need to buy rice and buy beans and stuff like that. And so, I really think we're on the cusp of a formula that can just go exponential all around the world. So let's keep meeting, let's keep coming together and create this as a global movement. Silas and I and Sarah and others and Summer meet every Friday for 4 hours on Food Healers. So everyone's welcome to join us. Those are my final comments. And thank you all so much. Thank you, Silas, for bringing us all together.
Thank you for being here. And I will send the information about Food Healers out to the to everyone here, so you know when to join and how we can get together and talk about this. So this is how we converge, and we each get better at what we do, right? So thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Salish.
Thank you, Hemal. And
Nice to meet you, Hemal. Good to
Lovely
see you,
to meet
Annie.
you all. Take care.
Great
Bye.
to meet you all. Thank you.
you.